everybody, and welcome back to The American Abroad. My name is Hannah, if you don't already know. Today I thought I would do another episode in regards to culture shock because it is something that I am dealing with currently. The wonderful thing about culture shock is that it affects you in many different ways, shapes, and forms. The culture shock that I've been recently dealing with is the biking culture here in Germany. Recently I bought a bike here in Lüneburg to give me another mode of transportation so I wouldn't have to rely solely on the bus or by walking. And to be completely honest, I thought that because I already know how to ride a bike, that it would be a fairly easy transition. However, I quickly realized after nearly crashing into a couple things, mainly fences, or maybe possibly crashing into some lampposts, that I really haven't biked anywhere with a purpose. I've never really used a bike as a mode of transportation. Bike riding to me was always more of a leisure activity and less of a necessity. And then I quickly remembered I come from Texas. Our infrastructure is not at all suitable to accompany bikes on the roads. So going from biking in a parking lot, for example, to biking in a park, to biking on a trail, to biking on the street next to cars, I have found that completely stressful, but something that I'm getting used to because I spent the money on this bike for the purpose of using it for the entire year, and I intend to get as much use out of it as possible. Today I'm going to talk about the differences between the American bike culture and the German bike culture, and also the pros and cons of biking in Germany. In terms of American biking culture, I pretty much figured out early on that Americans learn how to ride bikes differently. And it's not only just the bike riding aspect of it, it's also the way that we pick our bikes for ourselves. For example, I have always ridden bikes in which I can place both feet flat on the ground. And with that, I was always able to sit down, have both feet on the ground, and go from having both feet on the ground to having both feet on the pedals instantly. Because I grew up in Texas, it's way too hot to be bike riding. And quite frankly, our cities and our cities' infrastructures are not bike safe because majority of us rely on cars or public transport to get places. Things like bike lanes in the street or bike lanes in the sidewalk, they really don't exist in Houston. It's not something that I'm particularly used to because I don't have them. I've never ridden in a bike lane before. So now that I've talked about American bike culture, I'm going to talk about German bike culture. It's very different. In terms of how Germans like their bikes set, Germans typically don't like having both feet planted on the ground. They're more comfortable with maybe the ball of one foot being able to safely go on the ground. And in terms of starting to pedal, there's this entire stand lean process that I don't really understand, but almost every German that I've talked to or that has tried to tell me how to do it, they seem to know what they're talking about. In terms of securing bikes to anything besides a bike rack, they're not really comfortable with securing it to a lamppost or even a tree like we are in the US. So it's just really been an adjustment for me, particularly as somebody who does not bike ride often back home. And I guess for me, I just have to remember that I didn't grow up riding a bike everywhere like most of these people did. Most Germans, if not every German, has grown up riding a bike. So when I feel like a 5-year-old on the street and I look at other 5-year-olds that are totally killing it, I don't know. But I also have to remember that here it's a little different. For a lot of Germans, bikes are their main source of transportation. Some people that rely solely on their bikes don't even have a car because they don't see a need for it. There are trains that carry the bikes, so they really don't need a car. Whereas in Texas, the idea of biking everywhere is kind of strange for everybody because it would take you absolutely forever to get anywhere. Most Texans rely on their cars or the public transportation if they have to get from A to Z. But even getting from A to Z in a car can take you maybe 20-25 minutes. And with the infrastructure not being suitable for bikes and not being bike friendly, and it just being way too hot in Texas, it's just not the greatest place to be a biker. Therefore, coming from Houston in particular, I don't have the skills to be biking on the road, but I do it anyway. There are a couple negatives with biking in Germany, particularly as somebody who does not bike as often as she should. It is fall right now, so all of the leaves are falling, and the majority of this town is covered in cobblestone. So that can prove dangerous when it's just a little bit misty or a little bit rainy, and the rain falls on the cobblestone and on the leaves, and everything gets really, really slick. So it could be super dangerous to be biking, particularly if you're not inexperienced like I am. And as it gets colder, all of the water on the ground is going to freeze, which will make it even more dangerous. Another thing that I never really thought about is that the signs, as in the street signs are different here. So on top of just trying to bike in a straight line, you also have to read the signs, make sure you're not going to cause an accident, look behind you, make sure there's not a car, pull your right arm out, pull your left arm out if you have to turn. It can be very stressful. And then on top of it, it's pretty rainy with the exception today. Today is actually a really beautiful day, but it's pretty rainy here in Germany, so enjoy the time. If you take your bike out when it's dry, it's probably going to be wet when you're trying to come back home. So you are left with the decision to either bike all the way home and get soaking wet, or to attempt to hold an umbrella while you bike, which can also be dangerous if you are uncoordinated like I am. But of course, there are positives to riding a bike in Germany. With a bike, of course, you do not have to rely on the bus 24/7, particularly right now because all of the first years just started university. All of the buses on any of the lines going to the university are super packed right now. So if I'm in a mood and I don't feel like dealing with that at all, I can just take my bike and not have to worry about getting on the bus. To me, the most relaxing thing in the world is going for a bike ride through any of the fields here in Germany. That's one of my favorite things to do here. It's kind of a place where I can clear my mind and not think about any of the stresses that I'm dealing with in either my personal life or with school. And I also can get really cute pictures out of it, so that's something that I enjoy doing. Another thing that I love to do is I love to go out. I like to go out with my friends, but a lot of times I get turned off at the fact that there's not going to be a bus that comes around to take me home at the end of the night. And rather than going out and walking home alone, I just decide not to go out at all. But with a bike, it makes things a lot easier and I don't feel paranoid if I'm just riding home. So that was my short check-in in terms of culture shock and bike riding in Germany. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and hit that bell so you can get notifications on when I post a new video. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I will see you next Sunday. Bye guys.